The apartment was too quiet. The kind of quiet that makes you question if you're truly alone. An unnatural stillness hung in the air, pressing against my eardrums, making every creak and groan of the building seem amplified. I tried to ignore it, to lose myself in the pages of my book, but the silence was insidious, seeping into my awareness like a chilling draft. Each word I read seemed to echo in the void, failing to distract me from the oppressive quiet. Then, I heard it. A faint whisper, barely audible like the rustling of pages turning on their own. It was as if the silence itself was trying to communicate with me. I looked up, heart pounding, but the only sound was the faint hum of the refrigerator. The whisper had vanished, leaving behind an even more unsettling quiet. I told myself it was nothing, just the city sounds playing tricks on my mind. The distant hum of traffic and occasional honk of a car horn should have been comforting, but they only added to the eerie atmosphere. I went back to my book, but the words swam before my eyes. My concentration was shattered, and the story I was reading seemed trivial compared to the growing unease in my chest. The whisper came again, this time closer, a breath against my ear. It was unmistakable, a soft, chilling voice that sent shivers down my spine. My name, uttered in a voice devoid of warmth or comfort. My blood ran cold. It was as if the very walls were speaking to me, mocking my solitude. I spun around, searching the empty room, my pulse quickening with each passing second. The shadows seemed to dance and shift, playing tricks on my eyes. There was no one there. The room was as empty as it had been moments before, but the feeling of being watched was undeniable. The silence returned, heavier now, pregnant with unspoken dread. It was as if the apartment itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. I was alone in the apartment, yet I felt a presence, unseen eyes watching my every move. The sensation was so strong that I could almost feel the weight of their gaze. I clutched my book tighter, a flimsy shield against the growing terror that threatened to consume me. The pages offered no comfort, only a reminder of the eerie whisper that had broken the silence. The shadows in the corners of the room seemed to deepen, stretching towards me like grasping claws. They moved with a life of their own, feeding off my fear. This was no ordinary night. The air was thick with an unspoken menace, a sense that something was terribly wrong. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. The silence was no longer just an absence of sound, it was a presence, a malevolent force that seemed to be closing in on me. The whispers started that night, insidious murmurs that slithered from the darkest corners of my apartment, twisting through the air like venomous smoke. They were always just out of reach of understanding, a cacophony of hushed voices that sent shivers down my spine. Sleep offered no escape, the whispers invading my dreams, transforming them into nightmares of suffocating darkness and disembodied voices. I tried to rationalize it away, to blame it on stress, on fatigue, on the city's relentless noise slowly chipping away at my sanity. But deep down, a primal fear bloomed in my chest, cold and sharp. The whispers weren't random. They were intentional, directed, aimed at me. They seemed to coil around me, tightening their grip with each passing day. I was a prisoner in my own home, held captive by the unseen, the unheard, the unknown. I tried to confide in my friends, to share the growing unease that clung to me like a shroud. It was a feeling that had been creeping up on me for weeks, a sense of dread that I couldn't shake off. Every time I tried to put it into words, it felt like trying to catch smoke with my bare hands. But my words sounded hollow, even to my own ears. I could see the confusion in their eyes, the way they exchanged glances when they thought I wasn't looking. It was as if my fear was a foreign language they couldn't understand. How could I explain the inexplicable? How could I make them see what I was seeing, feel what I was feeling? The frustration built up inside me, a storm of emotions that had no outlet. The skeptical looks, the polite dismissals, only served to deepen my isolation. I felt like I was drifting away from them, from the people who were supposed to be my support system. Their disbelief was a wall I couldn't break through. It's just an old building, they'd say, creaky pipes, noisy neighbors. But I knew better. I had lived in that building long enough to know its sounds, its quirks. This was different, something that defied logical explanation. This was something else entirely. The shadows seemed to have a life of their own, moving in ways that shadows shouldn't. The whispers were too clear, too deliberate to be dismissed as mere imagination. Something sinister was weaving its way into my life, something that whispered my name in the dead of night. I would lie in bed, my heart pounding, straining to hear the faintest sound. The fear was a constant companion, a dark cloud that hung over me. Their disbelief chipped away at my resolve, their doubts fueling my own. Was I going crazy? The question haunted me, gnawing at my sanity. I started to doubt my own perceptions, wondering if my mind was playing tricks on me. Was I imagining the whispers, the shadows that seemed to move in the periphery of my vision? Every creak, every rustle became a source of terror. I was constantly on edge, my nerves frayed to the breaking point. I longed to believe that, to embrace the comfort of a rational explanation. I read books, searched for answers, anything that could offer a logical reason for what I was experiencing. But nothing fit, nothing made sense. But the fear that gnawed at my insides told a different story. It was a primal fear, something that went beyond reason. It was as if my very soul was warning me of a danger that my mind couldn't comprehend. A story of something ancient and evil, lurking just beyond the veil of my perception. It was a presence that I could feel but not see, a malevolent force that seemed to be waiting for the right moment to strike. And in the depths of my fear, I knew that moment was coming. Then came the symbols. Strange, intricate designs began appearing around my apartment, etched into the dust on my furniture, scrawled on the condensation that clung to my windows. They seemed to appear overnight, as if some unseen hand was at work while I slept. They were unsettlingly familiar, like something glimpsed in a fever dream, a recurring nightmare that I couldn't shake off. It was a language I couldn't decipher but instinctively knew spoke of something dark and unholy. The symbols seemed ancient, as if they had been around for centuries, carrying with them a weight of malevolence. I tried to scrub them away, to erase their presence from my sight, but it was futile. No matter how hard I tried, they always returned. They multiplied, spreading like a malignant growth, infesting every corner of my home. It was as if the very walls were conspiring against me, determined to drive me to the brink of madness. The whispers grew louder, more insistent. They were no longer just a background noise. They were a constant presence, a sinister soundtrack to my life. They no longer contented themselves with murmuring in the shadows. Now they seemed to take on a life of their own, shadowy figures that lurked just out of sight, always watching, always waiting. The whispers seemed to emanate from the walls themselves, from the very air I breathed. It was as if my home had become a living entity, a malevolent force that sought to consume me. My name, repeated over and over, a chilling mantra that echoed through the empty rooms. It was a constant reminder that I was never alone, that something was always watching, always waiting. Fear became my constant companion, a knot of dread that tightened its grip with each passing hour. It was a suffocating presence, a weight that pressed down on me, making it hard to breathe, hard to think. I was trapped, ensnared in a web of terror that was slowly but surely closing in around me. There was no escape, no respite from the relentless onslaught of fear and dread. My home had become a prison, and I was its captive, doomed to live out my days in a state of perpetual terror. One evening, as twilight painted the sky in hues of blood orange and bruised purple, I heard it. My name, spoken clearly, softly, from the direction of my bedroom. It wasn't the harsh whisper of the unseen presences that haunted my every waking moment. This was different. This was a voice, alluring and gentle, like a lover's caress. It called to me, beckoned me, promising solace from the terror that had become my reality. Against my better judgment, I found myself drawn towards the sound. Each step I took filled me with a growing sense of unease, a certainty that I was walking into a trap. But the voice, so full of warmth and understanding, drowned out the voice of reason. I had to see who was calling to me, had to know who offered such sweet respite from the nightmare that had become my life.